The 2024 NFL playoffs kicks off this Saturday at 4:30 Eastern with Justin Herbert and the Chargers flying to Houston to take on CJ Stroud and the Texans. My name's Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and we're going to break down this wild card matchup between the Chargers and Texans. But before we do that, if you like the work that we put out and you want to help grow the Tracy Take channel, be sure to subscribe to the Tracy Take, tackle that bell to get notified when new videos come out. Leave a like and a comment. Let us know who you think will win and why. Ryan, the playoffs are finally here. We are not surprised that the Texans won the AFC South. I think we're a little bit surprised and concerned, I think, coming into this matchup with the Texans team. I think Texas fan
Yeah.
base is also a little concerned as well, just with all the injuries that they've had to deal with. And on the flip side, the Chargers, I think they're going to be one of the teams with the biggest kind of momentum coming into the playoffs here. It's like they clearly have their deficiencies.
Yeah.
They don't have like the super huge weapon that you have to worry about on the offensive side of the ball. But if you go and look at this offensive team's production from the second half of the season to the first half of the season, they've improved immensely, especially to Justin Herbert connected with Lad McConkey. Quentin Johnston had himself a day today against the Las Vegas Raiders. I know it was the Raiders just the last week, but still, you like seeing that is a possibility. So this is going to be a very fascinating matchup between these two teams. Uh, Second-year head coach D'Amico Ryans, first-year head coach with the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, going to be going up two superstar quarterbacks as well. This is going to be a phenomenal matchup to start off
Oh,
for
yeah.
both of these franchises. I want to throw it over to you. What are some of the key X factors that you're looking at for here in this matchup?
Yeah, well, first off, I think it's gonna really come down to this corner on receiver matchup between the Los Angeles corners and this Texans wide receivers. Because if they can take Nico Collins out of this game, which is hard to do, he's a very good receiver. Uh, I do feel like that this Chargers defense will really be able to get after CJ Stroud and really be able to disrupt this offense. Just because without Tank Dell, without Stephon Diggs, just the injuries that have amounted on the offensive side of the ball.
And on top of that, it looks like John Mechie was evaluated for a concussion today as well, just to
Yeah,
throw another
yeah,
layer onto that.
yeah. And not that he was like this elite contributor to this offense, but it is just like one more like straw in the pile. Like
Yeah.
so, I I really think if they can take Nico Collins out of this game, that this Texans offense is really going to struggle. You also look Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, both of those guys, two very good edge rushers. They're not the best run defense, the Chargers, but they're much better than they have been in the past. I think that's just the mentality shift between Brendan Staley and Jim Harbaugh, and so for me, I think that is going to be critical because this Texans team is probably going to struggle to run the ball. They're going to need to get the ball out of CJ Stroud's hands quickly with these edge rushers. So if the Chargers can come in and take away Nico Collins, I think it's going to be a long day for this offense. And on the flip side, this Texans team, I believe, leads the league or is at the near the top of the league in sacks.
Sacks allowed,
And
you mean?
no, on the like between
Oh,
Will
yeah.
Anderson and Danielle Hunter.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
so this is a really good pass rushing duo. However, Rashawn Slater, Joe Alt, that's a really good tackle set. There's not a lot of interior pressure coming from this defensive line. And so I think that the strengths of this defense kind of play into a couple of the strengths of this Chargers offense. And Derek Stingley's a really good corner, but Lad McConkey, they kind of move him all around. He's very explosive. He can be a handful for one single corner to have to cover. Quentin Johnston at times, when he's not dropping the football, can be a good weapon. Josh Palmer has shown to be a good complementary piece. Will Dissly, they get the tight ends involved as well. So they're going to need to play a complete game on this Texans defensive side of the ball to come out ahead in this one.
Well, and I think it goes both ways. I think for the Texans and the Chargers, it's going to be a pretty defensive heavy matchup. They're pretty similar overall. I think when it comes to the defense, especially too, if you just look at it statistically, Texans are sixth in passing yards allowed, while the Chargers are seventh in passing yards allowed. Texans are 11th in rushing yards allowed, 14th for the Chargers in rushing yards allowed. Texans are fourth in sacks with 49. Chargers are sixth with 46. So they're pretty similar. Texans do have a little more takeaways on the season than the Chargers do, that with 29, while the Chargers have 21. The thing to me, I, I, I look at it on the other side of the ball too as well. Chargers just have that momentum of being more successful this season. Over the past several weeks, I would say. Like we've
Yeah.
already talked about some of the injuries, but even too, just the flow and just the connection. The Houston Texans have really struggled with the offensive line side of the ball. CJ Stroud has been sacked 54 times so far this season, while the Chargers, they have given up 44 sacks. So a little less, but still, to your point, Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, they can really get after it. And so I just think, to me, flowing, like, kind of momentum wise, though, this Chargers offense, it is clicking a little bit. I think Justin Herbert is one of the top quarterbacks in the league. CJ Stroud, it's some saying he's having a sophomore slump. And if you look at it statistically, yes. And he's not playing as well. But at the same time, though, too, that offensive line's really struggling for him, I feel.
Yeah.
So
They
it,
haven't
go
sorry,
ahead.
they haven't helped him out at
They
all,
haven't helped him out. Yeah.
but his accuracy numbers have taken a hit this
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that go into that, and I think it's more external from CJ Stroud than it is CJ Stroud, even though that does play a part of it. And so that's why, kind of, for me, when I'm looking at this game, I just think Justin Herbert. I think they have the momentum. We talked about how being this 5 seed was so crucial, like going into Week 18. Like, Steelers had their opportunity to win, to lock up the 5 seed, and they blew it. Chargers took advantage of that because this Texas team is clearly, they're probably the weakest team in the playoffs. Just as the momentum and what's been going on over these past couple of weeks, past month or so, of
Yeah.
the 14 teams that are going to make it, they're probably the weakest.
Yeah.
Maybe you could throw the Commanders and Packers in there, maybe the Broncos in there as well. But I I just think, with how decimated they've been on the injury side of the ball, this offense has clearly taken a hit. I know on Christmas Day they did play Baltimore Ravens, who are legit Super Bowl favorites, but this was a shell of a team of what we thought it was last year.
Yeah.
And as I've mentioned, a lot of injuries have taken place. I do think that they have a little bit of weaknesses on the defensive interior. I'm going to be curious if how the Chargers are able to run the ball with J.K. Dobbins, and if they're able to kind of capitalize on that. But that all being said, though, offensively, I just think the Texans are going to struggle to move the ball more than what the Chargers are going to be able to do. And that's why, for me, I'm going to go with the Chargers in this one. I'm going to go with the road one. I think, to your point, culture, I think Jim Harbaugh, that mindset, what he's come and brought into this Chargers team, they've done a lot this year with very little. I think a lot of people weren't really expecting them to be this good, to be at this point. And like, I thought maybe they could be a fringe playoff team, but they've clearly separated themselves in the top half of the AFC. Now, also, just to play devil's advocate on that last point, a lot of teams have played themselves in the bottom half of the AFC very easily. so,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. That
so they've just been much more consistent overall. I think that's what's gotten them here to this point, and I think that's going to be the big difference in this game is consistency from Justin Herbert, consistency from the offensive line, consistency from the defense, getting after CJ Stroud, making it uneasy for him, and really relying on Nico Collins and Joe Mixon as well uh, to have to be the superstars that they were paid to be. And I just don't think it's going to be enough.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chargers as well. The Texans are just so banged up that I don't necessarily like. I don't know if this game can really even be competitive because I feel like if the Chargers go through one of those spurts where they put up 14 or 21 points in three straight possessions, I really don't think the Texans can keep up. Like, obviously they can. It's just so to me, it's just so unlikely. And I think the strengths of the Texans kind of play into some of the strengths of the Chargers as well. And I like it's just been a rough year for the Texans and a team that we really had Super Bowl aspirations for. Uh, that like they've dwindled very much so here lately.
Well, this happens every year. I mean,
Yeah,
we're going to say the same thing about the 49ers too when we do our offseason 2025 offseason
yeah,
preview
that
videos.
one's a little extreme because they really fell off a cliff this year, but they
Well,
also like they
they
were
get
so
decimated
banged
with
up.
injuries also too.
Yeah,
And not only did they get decimated with injuries too, as well, but I think it was all like to their star players. Same thing with the Texans. So
yeah.
it, and that being said, the Texans, they did still win their division. Like, they have a shot. You and I, we're rarely wrong, but like, they gave themselves an opportunity.
The the other example this season, I think, is gonna be the Pittsburgh Steelers. that one, George Pickens went out. That offense has really struggled to find a
Yeah.
rhythm there as well. And George Pickens is back now. He doesn't seem to be as impactful uh, as he was before
He
injury.
seems
But
very uninterested.
yeah. And so for me, I think like there are just these teams that are like they peaked in week 8, 10, 8 or 10 in that range and like are just kind of on the decline. The Texans, I don't think that it is necessarily like the Steelers, it might be that like that's a George Pickens mentality issue. The Texans in this case, I think are just so banged up and so like physically done with this season. And
Yeah.
I think the Chargers are still I know Bosa and Mack and some of the other guys in that defense are older, but this is still a young and hungry offense, and I think they get it done here in Justin Herbert's second playoff matchup.
I
So
like it.
let's go ahead. Let's wrap this one up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on who you think is going to come out ahead. Will it be the Los Angeles Chargers? Will it be the Houston Texans? And other than that, we will see you guys next time.